Live coding session. Code Buddies is a global community of amazing people who help each other become better at software development through conversations on Slack and peer-to-peer organized study groups and virtual hangouts. Today, we'll be working on an online registration site. Our source code is open and publicly available on GitHub. The link to the source code is in the lower right-hand corner of this video. I'm joined by my friend and fellow Quaker, John Inman, today. Hey, John, do you want to say hello? Oh, try that one more time. Sorry, it was muted, but they will be able to hear you.
Okay, hi, Briley. Good morning, and it's good to be here. Good evening for you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so we're experimenting with this live coding plugin for VS Code. It's called LiveShare, and it has a lot of little nice features like a whiteboard where we've sort of mocked out our data model. It's got audio chat, and John and I can kind of peruse source code together, and when I run a local server on my computer, John is actually able to access it as if it were running on his local host. So if I, let's see if I go into our Poetry shell, and I run Python manage py run server. John, you should see that I'm running a server now. Can you access that localhost port 8000?
Oh yeah,
Git favicon. Okay, so where we left off last week, if you recall, I was about to cry a little bit because I couldn't get our user registration site to work. No, I wasn't really on the brink of tears, but I have been frustrated to almost tears sometimes. But I did spend a little bit of time after our session, and I think I got it working. Are you able to register, or can you tell me if there's any difficulties with that? Is there? Okay, so I see.
It looks like I'm able to register. I've hit the register button.
Yes.
And I'm gonna type in my email.
Right.
I'm gonna create a password. Confirming my password. Now there's a button that says register, and it says I am now registered.
Awesome. So if you go ahead and log in, I can promote you to admin, or I guess you don't have to log in, but we will need to be logging in. Yeah, this should tell us if there's a problem if you can't log in. Basically, we're doing a full test of the registration flow.
Yeah, let's see. I may not be able to...
Oh, I'm sorry. If you look in your browser shell, in VS Code, I failed to mention this. Let me describe what's going on here. The Django registration package has an activation flow where it sends an email account activation. Since we don't have a mail server, it sent it to like the standard out. So you'll have to scroll up a little bit in the VS Code terminal, and you'll see your little welcome message that says, thanks for registering with the site, please.
I don't have a VS Code terminal open. Let me see if I can.
Well, if you look at our live code session,
okay, yeah,
you'll see shared terminals. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, oh, there's my link. Mm-hmm. It's a nice, pretty link.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I made sure to spice it up for you.
Yeah.
With a lot of extra characters.
Success.
Yay!
Okay, so,
all right.
So I've done that. Now I'm going to log in that I've registered. You know, and I'm getting another message that says success. But then it says my account is not activated, so that must come from your end.
Well, that link was supposed to...
I'm logged in, but it says your account is not activated. Thanks.
Okay, that is weird. Well, let's see. I'll look at the users, because that's going to be a problem if the activation link is not activating your account, right? My dashboard says you're active. So maybe there was like some...
So that could just be an erroneous boilerplate message or something.
Yeah, Django has the messages framework, and it's like a message queue that lives sort of on the server side, and when you're refreshing a page, when it's rendering a template for you, it'll take the most recent messages and render those into the template. So it could be that there was a message from when you tried to sign in prior to having opened the account activate link that was lingering, and it just didn't display the messages queue after you logged in. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one to see if it's going to confuse other people. When you registered, did it send a notification on your screen that says, please check your email or anything like that? I might have to add that feature later.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, basically the reason I was having troubles last week is more or less this Django registration package has changed the way it does a few things since I implemented it in Western Friend, and we're using a simple author activation flow where you just register and you're immediately activated. You don't have to click any other links. But for PYM registration, I think we'll want an activation flow, a two-step activation. And anyway, that's what I got to work. So,
Cool.
yeah, long story. One thing I was going to mention about that is a lot of times when I'll be struggling with something and trying to get it to work one specific way, I find that if I let go of that one specific way, sometimes another way will open up and
Oh, yeah.
be much easier. So,
Yeah, I was just listening to a really excellent podcast with Donald Knuth, and he was just sort of relaying how his first thought for an algorithm is usually not the best one. And that subtle, beautiful algorithms emerge after a series of refinements and reflections.
that makes sense, yeah. Give it some time, sleep on it, for example.
Yes, very likely.
All right, so I added a couple of indications on our little domain model here, our entity diagram, to show like cardinality, I think, basically how many of one entity can be related to another entity. I'm just trying to think how many disbursements can go against one registration. I suppose multiple disbursements. One disbursement can, shoot, I have to think about this for a second. Do you see the whiteboard? Are you viewing the whiteboard?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I can't, because it doesn't really give me your focus. I can't tell where you are.
Actually, there was a way I remember following you, so I'm going to follow you now.
Oh yeah, okay, and we'll see if that.
No, I don't think that brings me. That brings me to the buffer that you're in, but not the whiteboard. So whatever.
All right. So let's think through this cardinality here, and we'll just try to get a basic implementation of at least one or two of these entities during this session.
Okay.
And we're going to look at the data model and the admin interface, how the registrar, the person managing the backend, will view things. I'll get feedback on Monday about our progress, if we're on the right track. We'll go deeper into the model. So one user can have n payments. One user can have n registrants. So that means, or it can, I'm guessing, I mean, this is more or less a question. I should be phrasing this differently, but I believe one user can have multiple registrants because a person might want to register their whole family.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if one user will need to make more than one payment, or if it'll be,
I would assume so.
okay, just in case you did a partial and need to do pay half up front and then pay half at the event or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. And then one payment can be applied to multiple disbursements. In other words, can be related to multiple.
Sure.
So you can make multiple disbursements from a single payment. I don't know if disbursement is the right word. I think
I
it
don't
is as
know.
close as I
It
could.
doesn't matter. Well, yeah, I'm wondering, in fact, if disbursement is redundant, since you have n registrations, if you could
Yes.
just apply the payment to n registrations.
All right, Lawrence Alderson seemed to think that the extra part was necessary, but let's try it without. Let's just try it with a 3-entity model and see how that. Well, I mean, when you, okay, so basically, if you, now I gotta, there's a slight thing here. Let me see if I can bring up my PG modeler, or it's not called PG modeler, it's called, yeah, it's PG modeler. Yeah. Yeah, let me share this on the stream. A window. Capture. Window is a particular software window. And then if I select my PG modeler. All right, can you see that PG modeler now? Oh, I'm sorry, you're on the live stream. Darn it. Yeah, as soon as we have to break it into another tool, then this code stops being useful. Well, what I was trying to illustrate with PG modeler, I'll just back out of that, and I'll just illustrate on the whiteboard. So,
okay.
And it's the part of data modeling that it's maybe not obvious, but starts to become important when you have different types of relationships. So you remember the different types of relationships are, there's like 3 of them. There's one-to-one, one to many, and many to many, right?
I suppose, I don't know if many to one would be a subset of many to many.
I think many to one and one to many are the same.
Okay.
Yeah, we could just call it that. Because the relationship goes from the many to the one. All right, so here it is. Let's do a one-to-one model. And that we're in a relational database that is created by it's called a foreign key field that refers to the other one. So on this entity, I'll put a foreign key field, FK. And that foreign key it stores the key to the other field. So every row in every entity in the database has a unique key, a unique identifier, basically, so a unique ID. And a one-to-one will just one entity will refer to the other. Like, for example, a child would refer to the parent.
Sure.
I wish you could, it's a whiteboard, so you can't move stuff around. That's right.
Do they both share a key, or could you imagine this as the one on the left has a column that sort of points to perhaps a unique identifier for the one on the right?
Yeah, the relationship goes one way.
Okay. Those are nice rectangles.
Thanks. So now in a one-to, so you don't need you don't need to define a field on both one-to-one entities to define the relationship. You can just have the field on one, and then Django actually does a reverse wiring for you. So you can, if you have so like the parent, and then you want to get the child, or if you have the child and want to get the parent, whichever, depending on how the relationship is defined, Django will give you a reverse, a way to get it back.
Could you remind me what the FK stands for?
Foreign key. So it's a key to a foreign entity.
Yeah, so it's really the identity of the one on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And I'm almost out of tea already. Darn it. And let me actually make sure I got the Twitch chat open just real quick, because a lot of times people will come in here and want to participate and ask questions and have really interesting conversations that have arisen through Twitch. So today, actually, I did a stream a little bit earlier, and I had I don't know, about 10 people at the most who were watching, and a bunch of people, like 5 people chatting, and there was a whole bunch of interesting conversations about just technologies and even a little bit of politics. We try to keep it out of there, but I felt inclined to sort of apologize for American imperialism over the last couple of centuries.
War just isn't the answer.
I know, dude.
I'm reading a great article that was linked to Hacker News about war being a racket. It was written by a U.S. general in the 30s, and I really enjoyed it. So all you had to do, Riley, was say the word politics, and I'll just start rambling.
Yes, I got you running. All right, let's check out the one-to-many, because it's a little different than the one-to-one. Let me just pop that over here. So on the one-to-many, then the many have the relationship, and the arrow points from the many to the one, because you have many blog articles that point to a specific topic or something like that. Or wait. Many topics. No, I'm sorry, that was a bad example.
Well, if we wanted to keep it
Category.
unidirectional, then I would think we would need a many-to-one and a one-to-many model.
Well, 1 second, because we haven't gotten to the many-to-many. So I have to, I'm drawing all these to give us a clear picture of what our options are.
Okay.
FK. So on the many-to-one, the F foreign key starts on the many. Each one of the items in the many points to the related one.
That makes sense.
So this is the parent-child. A parent can have multiple children, so each child refers to its parent. All right, so now let's do the third one, many-to-many. And so where would you think the foreign key would reside here?
We're going many-to-many?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to wait until I see the direction of your arrows.
That's what I'm asking. Which way would the arrow point?
Well, it doesn't matter. They're both blank right now.
Yeah, I'm erasing them. Sorry, I'm just also erasing it, but no, sorry. You need to make a little bit more room because this is a trick question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I'm going to keep it simple in my mind and start by thinking of them as unidirectional, arbitrarily from left to right.
Okay, so let's just make these concrete. Then we'll have blogs and category, and so I have a blog post, and I want it has multiple categories, right?
I see it. Yeah.
So the trick question is you can't model it basically with just 2 tables, because a category also has multiple blogs, and in basic form, data in the primitive data structures available in Postgres, it has fields like array, where you could have an array or a list of foreign key, like the IDs.
Very good. Yeah, that's what intuitively came up for me.
All right, but it's not how Django operates.
FP1, FP2.
Yeah, and I think that's not I think that's not treated as an actual foreign key. I don't know that you can have, I may be wrong, but I don't think you can have a foreign key field on a model that the primitive data type of that key is multiple
Okay.
primitive elements, multiple elements in there. I think your foreign key has to be very primitive type, so it can't be, in fact, a list is not a primitive data type. A list is a composite data type.
It has to be what you might call an atom. Maybe.
Yeah. And so what happens with many-to-many relationships is there's an intermediary table that has records for each relationship.
Well, this would also seem to allow it to be bidirectional.
Many-to-many, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blog category. So basically, that's the way it works. And then the blog, so then in this model, it actually looks like this.
So are these fully crossed such that 3 factorial is 6? Would there be 6 blog category squares stacked on one another?
Well,
So it's sort of
I can see
the
that.
entire space
If every blog post is using every category, yeah.
potentially.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So the maximum would be factorial or whatever.
Okay.
But typically, there's, it's blog.
Yeah, typically it's
right,
not
you don't
fully
saturate it.
processed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now this gets us back to primitives. So we have this blog category, row that has a foreign key. It links one category and one blog entry.
Gorgeous.
So that's basic data modeling in relational terms using primitive data types. And I think it's going to apply here to our model. So coming back to cardinality, we have to determine if we're in one-to-one, many-to-one, and many-to-many types of relationships for each of our lines in the diagram. And I'm going to go ahead and erase disbursement because intuitively both of us are kind of picking up that it might not be necessary yet. So if we can...
it might kind of signal that we do need to have a 4-box model, but we just haven't quite clarified which those boxes should be. So for now, I agree we should get rid of that disbursement.
All right, so let's go ahead and just start in on the basic 3 elements. We've already got the user, and we sorted that out last week, and now you're able to register, so you verified that the registration process seems to be working. Maybe it needs some polish.
Now, we're kind of confusing some words here, at least for me. It's the users that register, and the registrants don't actually register.
Right.
They register for the event, but not for the site.
The users sign up for the users register for the site and also register multiple registrants for the event. DSC. Oh, DSC is back in the. Sorry, I'm reading in the chat. Django sucks. Flask rules. They posted this earlier, so.
Is that a joke or?
I don't quite know. It's the internet.
I mean, it seems like.
I think in tongue in cheek.
There's a right tool for the job, right? And so maybe what he's really saying is this job sucks. So. Yeah,
that could be that. DSC says no joke, all caps, and I don't know. All right. Nice. I'm getting a little bit more.
I do appreciate enthusiasm for Flask.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So let's define a model. Now I was thinking for this pair programming. Maybe in this session I'll primarily do the coding, but be prepared. This tool allows us to take turns coding also. And it's good hands-on, and that basically in pair programming sessions you don't want one person to drive the whole time. Like if you're on a long road trip, you'll take turns driving, and the other person taking the map. Okay. So that's just good to give people a break, and one that way they can choose the radio station.
I should probably get my license first.
Yeah, so we'll work on it here. I'll train you. You can do your the training driving with me or whatever that is called. Your learner's permit.
I think it's called finishing the Django tutorial.
Finishing the what? I'm sorry, it was breaking up.
Django tutorial.
Oh, well, this actually you'll skip a lot of the Django tutorial with Wagtail. You might be surprised at how much Wagtail abstracts away from Django. It's for better, for worse, because then you learn Django a little bit slower, but you're able to build things a little bit faster, and you'll get to the Django when you need it. In other words, there's things that in the tutorial, yes, please go ahead and finish the tutorial, but there's things like views and URLs that you don't typically have to define in Wagtail. It does those for you. It's kind of nice. Actually, maybe I'm speaking too soon. We'll have to look at how our data model progresses, but right now we're looking at the user model. So I just closed those 2 windows, and we're going to create a new app, it looks like. Now, my convention with Django apps is they should be the plural of the thing that they're modeling, or if there's an app can contain multiple entities. So for example, if we have a registration app in ours and we have underneath the registration we have accommodations, we have food preferences and other table models, then our app could be called registration. But if under our under our app is just the registrants data model, then we could just call it registrants. So we don't have to dwell on that for too much up front, but I'll give you another concrete example. In the Western Friend website we're redesigning with Django and Wagtail, there's one app called Magazine, And that magazine is basically what renders out the Western Front magazine issues. And each issue has an image associated with it, a publication date, and multiple articles. It's a one-to-many relationship. But we didn't create an articles app. We just put those articles, the articles model underneath the magazine app, because it's natural that they're the same thing. When you talk about a magazine, it just consists of articles. In any case, this is a long-winded way of saying we have to pick an app name, because if you look at our file structure in the Explorer, we have an account app, a home app, a PYM registration folder, which kind of has our configuration in there, and then we have a search app. So we have more or less three apps right now. So we're going to create one. So all that said, what do you think our app should be called? What do you think we're going to put in this app relating to handling the event registrants?
Well, so I guess the question is this app actually nested within another app that it would never be used if not within the context of this other higher app? Is that a fair question?
Yeah. Yeah, apps aren't typically, Django applications aren't typically nested. They're like their own Python module, but they could have, I guess the key concept here, let's take a look at an app real quick, a structure, because the parts of an app are a model, which is how your data are structured, the database table and fields and methods. Views, which is how you get data out of the database to the template and render it into a template. And then there's a couple of other things you don't encounter as much, but like if you want to define a custom form, like a registration form, which we will, then you would have defined a forms pie. Multiple different tables can be defined in our models, but yeah, the apps themselves aren't hierarchical, but they can consist of multiple parts and multiple database tables. Does that make sense? I don't want to be too confusing or verbose about it.
I don't want to be too slow for any potential listener, but I'll just risk that by asking if a Django app is more or less synonymous with a website.
Website.
Top-level domain.
Oh, no. That's actually Wagtail has a concept there. Let's take a look at that. If you look at the Wagtail admin, are you logged in? Oh, actually, I need to make you an admin. And I need to run the server. Okay, go ahead and log in now.
Okay, I think I should be logged in. Yeah, it looks like I am. So just /admin.
Wait 1 second. And for some reason, it's having me put in first and last names. It's really weird. Yeah. Oops. Oh, by the way, you're using your personal email, and this is on the live stream. I'm sorry, I just realized that.
It's okay.
Okay. If you want, you can delete this user and use a different email, but it's already kind of on this live stream now.
It's out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get propaganda for Flask. But
I guess so. Level 2. Hey, what's up? Gonna go into lurk mode. Level 2 has been lurking. DSC says, hello, I've been coding Python for 11 years and hereby conclude that Django sucks. I run a very successful consultancy company and my clients pay me good money for my expert advice. Therefore, you should switch to Flask. All right, well, I appreciate your...
Is that user number 2 recommending Flask?
Yeah, we have a swarm of users coming in here. Recommending Flask. No, it's the same user. DSC. I think they're trolling a little bit. All right. So I promoted you to an admin. John, are you able to log in now?
Oh yeah, I'm logged in. I'm at the welcome page to the admin.
All right, go on the settings menu and click sites, because all this stuff you haven't really seen a Wagtail site. This is very specific stuff. So the question was, is a Django app equivalent to like a top level domain, like would, for example, Western Friend and PYM Pacific Yearly Meeting have their own Django app?
Yeah.
And basically, no, it's you can think of like an app as sort of either a room in a house that might consist of multiple appliances. Like you can have a kitchen app that has an oven appliance and a refrigerator that stores a lot of food in there, and that refrigerator could be a table, like a database table with different shelves, and so that each site that uses your software has all those apps. Like if you live in multi-tenant apartment, each apartment might be furnished with it might have a kitchen and a living room app. Mm-hmm. So the apps are generic structures that you live in, or you organize your content in functionality. So if you look at the sites menu, you'll see we've only defined one host, but if you click the add a site button, hey, what's up, Hayes Anderson, welcome back. You can add sites, and the host name is what you're referring to with the top level domain. So you can have multiple host names that resolve to a Wagtail instance, and they all have the same functionality, but they have different. They're their own apartments. They don't share. They don't share a laundry basket. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's very flexible, and what we're defining, and this is going to come back to the Quaker CMS. We're defining more or less archetypal patterns, data structures, and functionality. Right. And those are called apps.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of options. I'm not sure.
Let's just go with registration and refactor it later. This is a prototype. There's no right or wrong answers, really. It's just a chance for us to kind of kick the tires. So I think I can open a new tab so I don't kill the server again. It's just not going to be plural. Registration is a process, and registration could consist of multiple either database tables. And I think it will, honestly, because I'll give you an example. And have you done the online registration for Pacific Yearly Meeting?
I know I haven't.
Okay, well, even if you fill out the paper form, it's a very similar thing. There's, they need to know your food preference, what type of accommodations you need, and those are like predefined lists. They're like vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, right? It doesn't just give you a form you fill out and put arbitrary dietary constrictions, caviar and champagne. It just has like very specific presets, similar with accommodations. And so those presets, in order to populate a list, would either be hard-coded in the software, like we would create a list in the source code and present that list to the user, or you can alternatively allow those items to be defined through a user interface, the Wagtail Admin. So you could have an accommodations section on the Wagtail sidebar menu. And when you click that accommodations, it shows you a list of the available options, and you can add and edit those lists. So the registrar doesn't have to become a source coder. They can do it through the user interface. There's trade-offs to that, and those will be decisions we'll encounter down the line. And we'll probably start off just by hard coding things and thinking more higher level later. All right. So I've got do you see our registration app? Available now. You see models.
Let me refresh.
Or make sure you're following me.
Oh, we're yeah, I'm there.
How are you doing, Hayes Anderson? What have you been up to since we last chatted earlier today? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a registrant model from the inheriting from the Django default model, which is a basic class that I don't really know. I've never looked at the source code, but here's the source code for the Django default model. It looks for relationships. It does things with quargs. It's basically some low-level abstraction. What would be some default information we should collect from registrants, like a first name?
Yeah, what's your keyboard shortcut for jumping to the definition of that?
F12.
Okay. Yeah, first name.
Yeah, so you just click on whatever it is and click F12. Does that work for you?
I think I'm read-only right now, but I guess I could maybe move around and see.
Huh. All right. Yeah, just keep that in mind because it's really useful. Oh, it did it? All right, good, because that's super important. All right, first name, so it goes models. character field. Those 255 is pretty big. First name, 255 characters. Let's see. Hayes Anderson says, set up some more synthesizers from an ex-music jam, mirrored some old documentation from a service that is not as cool as it used to be, and contemplated the state of modern web development. Wow, that sounds like a kind of profound afternoon. Hey, have you heard of InJam? And John, have you heard of this also?
I have not.
Oh, dudicles. Dudenesses. Dudicles. That sounds a little bit
It's a coder bro.
inappropriate. Yeah. It's a what? Quarter bro?
Coder bro.
Coder bro. Let me send this link to you in the chat. We gotta try this sometime. I've actually got it working on Linux even. If you're in Windows, you're gonna have a better time getting it set up. Where's our chat window? Chat with this user. Check out the chat in VS Code, John. Maybe. There it goes. Basically, it's a real-time jamming session over the internet, and it works. It works good. Ninbot.com. Ninbot.com. Right now, there are people in France, Germany, United States, Czech Republic, and Malaysia who are jamming in one room. You can listen in at this exact moment to their jamming. I won't do it on the stream, but it's worth checking it out. And I've been on there.
Like, live coding music?
Yes, it is. It really is. And it real low latency. It's open source also, the InJam server and client. But it's mainly, essentially, it boils down to you'll probably need to install Reaper, is this digital audio workstation for Windows and OS X and Linux. And then your InJam experience will be perfect because it's integrated fully into Reaper already. And Reaper's only like $60, so, you know, as DAWs go, that's really affordable. And it's under rapid development. So actually, I installed it on Linux, thinking about buying a license just because InJam is so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, we'll have to try it out sometime soon. You same guys that make Reaper? Yep, that's it, Hayes. And InJam does have some binaries you can download. Like there's a JavaScript edition of it that runs in Google Chrome. You can download from the Chrome store. You might have good experience with that. My difficulties I had with the Google Chrome edition is it wouldn't let me select my input source. It's using the browser, so I couldn't actually switch over. What was it doing? I can't remember, but anyway, I have an audio interface, a USB audio interface, and I was wanting to, instead of broadcasting through my microphone, maybe I was wanting to broadcast from some software, and I couldn't make that switch. In any case, let's get back on topic. Yeah, but it's good stuff. So it's interesting to know Hayes Anderson is also a musician, interested in doing synthesizers and jamming and modern web development. Now, Hayes was telling me that they were frustrated because Perl 5 is deprecated, right? Is that correct, Hayes? And we were discussing how basically, you know, you invest in an ecosystem and language, and it's more than just the code you write. It's that the ecosystem can evaporate.
Seems like the current version of Perl is 5 point something.
Should be Perl 6. Now, I think what happened is they created Perl 6, but it was such a different language that it even got a different name. Yeah, look at Perl 6 and see what Raku, they call it, Raku programming language now.
Gotcha.
Hayes Anderson says it's fairly dead, still some jobs out there, but mostly to port things away from Perl 5. Darn. All right,
Yeah, when I go to the Perl website, the active Perl is 5.28, but I guess that's, yeah, not being developed. And the new one is called Raku?
Yeah, RAKU.
Well, that's too bad. Come on, Larry.
Oh, dang it. I'm on the wrong branch. I'm committing to master. Oh, well, I'll just do it. I'll have to get in the habit of this. On this project, I've been really kind of winging it. I'm gonna commit to master because nobody else is contributing to this. Okay, what was that, John?
Oh, I'm just sort of mumbling Perl 6. So it was not backwards compatible.
Right, I think it was distinct enough that it warranted its own name and own language and own everything. Like the Python 2 to 3 broke backwards compatibility, and I'm not sure to what extent, but I think most of it was just boils down to people having troubles. They were using ASCII strings everywhere, and then Python 3 defaulted to Unicode, so it could be international language. And most of the difficulties I've heard about people migrating was because they would have to go through their whole app and look at for string handling to make sure strings were being parsed correctly. And I think there are some other changes, like print became a function, so you had to use parentheses. But some of those are easy to catch. I'm not sure to what extent Python 2 to 3 broke backwards compatibility. It sounds to me less of an extent than Perl 5 to 6, but it has taken 12 years and much debate and controversy for Python 2 to finally be end of life this year, starting January 1st.
So it's this year, okay.
Yeah, it started the 1st January. The last release of Python 2.7 will be April. Go ahead.
Installed by default on my system.
That's not going to be the case much longer yet. Ubuntu's switching to Python 3 by default. Debian is more conservative about their releases. So, and what are you running? Are you running Debian, right? No. OpenBSD. Yeah, you'll have to check the OpenBSD policy there. They might keep Python 2.7 around for a little bit longer, but it's end of life. It's not going to be receiving any updates or security patches. I'm going to start some water real quick boiling so I can make a little pot of tea. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Hayes Anderson says, I'll just say Hayes for now on. I recommend using version management software for Python installs. Oh, like a PyEnv or something like that? Like this one? And then they said, leave system Python alone. So yeah, by leave it alone, Hayes, do you mean leave it at 2.7, or that sometime in the next 1 to 2 years, system Python is going to need to upgrade to Python 3, because Ubuntu is on the course for Python 3. They're dropping Python 2.7. Oh, I'm sorry, the screen is still on the screensaver. Yep, so Hayes said that, yeah, I've used PyEnv, but I don't know what's current. Yeah, I'm not sure what's current either, but PyEnv was updated yesterday, so it's got a lot of contributors. Pretty steady commit history. It's been around for a long time. In the last year, it's got 2 committers with over 10 commits. I don't know how big people's commits are. You can see this person has 4 commits with 8,000 lines involved. So that, I don't know what they did, but Yeah, all right. I don't know of any other alternatives to PyInf. All right, so we're back. One other thing, so I'm gonna add 3 fields to the register model. We haven't done any really great data modeling here aside from figuring out, our entity relationships, but I'm gonna add a registration cost. And this is a floating point, float field. It's not a positive integer field. It shouldn't be a negative value, but we'll cross that bridge when we need to. There's a validator or something. Validators equals, and you can provide a tuple of validators, including positive. Django. Positive value. Let's see how to create a Django float field with maximum and minimum limits. Min value validator does not work to somebody, but that should work. Min value equals 0. Validators. Min value validator 0.0. Let's just try it out. So validators takes an iterable, so they're providing a list. I think a tuple would work also. I'll have to import that. Now my IDE doesn't automatically import things from the standard library, but that would be really cool if it did. There might be a way to do it in VS Code if I could click on something and say add import. Sort imports, that's kind of handy. Import magic. Oh, import magic. What do you think this is going to do? The Visual Studio Code extension allows you to find unresolved symbols in your Python projects and helps you import them. Too cool. I'll try it out. BrainFit, 21,000 installs, supports only Python 3. It's been updated recently, December. Let's try it out. How do you guys feel? How do y'all feel about supporting trusting third-party code either from VS Code extensions or pip or CPAN or what's that one? NPM. There's debate on Hacker News. There's people discussing the size of, for example, NPM packages, like downloading 500 megs of dependencies, and then you're trusting all that code. And what do you think of that? And just in general, like.
Yeah, I don't know if the dividing line for me is the fact that it's third party. It's in general, I guess I try to maintain a fairly minimal system just to avoid those emergent complex potential.
Yeah, so you're avoiding complexity by keeping your stuff to a minimum. Yeah, that's why you're using FreeBSD or FreeBSD, right? OpenBSD. I'm sorry, I keep getting those confused.
And I kind of, don't. I know I need something if I go to use it and it's not there. That's my threshold.
Look at this. Okay, check it out. I'm resolving import. Oh, it didn't work. Does it know that? Maybe I typed it wrong. Dang. Min value validator. Well, I'm gonna just see where to import that
How
from.
about you, Briley?
I'm sorry, about the same question.
Yeah.
I mean, I use gobs of plugins and stuff. And I know NPM, it's just the way of the gun. I'm installing packages, and for example, we just discovered that this VS Code live share extension is using Skype underneath of it. And I so I don't know, sometimes it's a surprise what you're bringing in.
I see, yeah.
And then sometimes you can have bad surprises. For example, package managers, package resolvers have started including the hash of the package release that you've import into your project, meaning the file size hash, like of the time at the official release, so that if, for example, PyP or NPM gets hacked and somebody starts replacing these dependencies with malicious code, the file size will change. I think it's not just the file size, it's the file contents will change, and the hash would be different. So that's one way to add a little bit more trust to it. But yeah, there's still been examples of people, taking trusted modules that they're maintaining and putting in advertisements in them and tracking code and stuff.
That's horrible. I think even there was an article in Hacker News a couple weeks ago about Ubuntu's message of the day daemon actually checked in, logged into the canonical site every time it was activated. I think for ad purposes. But
all right.
not positive.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a certain measure of trust, right? And no one's ever going to. I mean, open source. Even then, you're not going to actually read the source usually until there's a problem.
Right.
So.
I actually don't even know where to import this min value validator from. Dang it. That's a little bit frustrating. From Django core validators? No, that's, at least it's intuitive. I totally guessed it. Import.
Huh.
Min value validator. All right, cool. And then, sorry, Hayes, I've been neglecting your chat messages. Let's see. I advocate using such packages, but like third-party packages, but the community needs to be vigilant. Hayes has written packages for PyP and Ruby gems and have written CPAN packages. They're biased for Perl, but CPAN is still the most reliable, trustworthy source like that because all the code is thoroughly tested. Oh, that's pretty interesting. They test my code against hundreds of platforms. I didn't know CPAN was offering that service. Perl also has this strong namespaces. Python kind of suffers, and so does Ruby. Very hard to explain. I think I understand what you mean by the strong namespacing. For example, you can just take any name you come up with and publish a PyP package, and that's it. Now you're squatting that name. Whereas NPM and maybe CPAN, they would prefix the name of your package with your username. So each user has their own namespace, or each organization, like on GitHub. So you can't really name squat. And some of the problems I think with packages have come from either a name being squatted or similar, or being left unmaintained and transitioning to a new owner, and then all the, dependent packages would pull in this same namespace package, but it could be totally different code, or something like that. Is that what you mean, Hayes, by stronger namespacing, sort of mitigating those types of issues? Oh, yes, my water's boiled. I'm sorry. I'm going to go put my tea on the boil. I completely spaced that. BRB. Okay, Hayes says, well, that is something else. What I was describing, the namespaces I was describing are different than what they were talking about. You can still pick any name you want and name squat that on CPAN. However, the categories are well groomed. Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's get back to the code here. So as you can see, John, are you still on my models.py? Are you still following me in the VS Code? All right, cool. So what we've got is we've got a register and define. I'm just going to add first name and last name fields just to get us something, and a registration cost, and that'll be able to, now we'll know, we'll have something to apply a payment against. We'll start there. So what I need to do now, if you can see in the terminal, which terminal do you see? Do you see 2 of them?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to switch over to Python 3 that's running the server. I'm going to stop it. And I need to, now that we've added this new registration app, I need to configure it with our system. I need to tell Django that we've got a new a new app installed. Accounts home, QRS. And what that's going to do is Django will then look for that Python module. Every Django app and a Wagtail app by extension are Python modules. And that's why if you look in the side of the registration folder, you see this init.py. That's how Python namespaces its modules. I'm not sure if namespacing is the right word here. So now we've registered our registration app with Django. We've told that Django exists. Now if I run Python manage py make migrations, Django is going to look through all of our apps and look in the models py files and see if anything has changed. Now it noticed that in our registration that the models py has changed, that there's a new class there. So it created a migration for that. And a migration means that something in the data has changed, the data model. And so a migration is taking you from step A to step B. So our step A was we had an accounts model. And now we have a registrant in here as well. And then I'm going to migrate that, which will actually modify our database. So now we have a couple new files. And I'll just commit these. Is this registrant model, should we call it registrant? I suppose so.
Registrant.
Does that make sense, or should it be a registration? It's a little confusing.
Yeah, I think it should be registration management or something along those lines.
Well, management is a verb. A model is typically an entity is typically a noun. So what noun-y thing would this be?
This model can potentially apply to in registrants. So.
No, this model applies to one registrant.
Okay.
That has a first name, a last name, and a registration cost.
I see.
Yeah.
I think this is appropriate.
Okay, because the just for clarity, it's going to define a database table called registrant also, and each row in that table is a specific data point about one particular registrant.
Okay.
But we could also call that a registration because it's also a data point about one event registration. I think registrant. Sorry, I don't overthink it. We're in agreement.
Yeah, I think registrant is a little more clear.
All right. And now
only because registration to me it could be applied to a few different contexts.
Yeah. And registration is kind of like a process that has different contexts throughout it, both at the point of registering on the site, but also as a relationship to the meeting and through the registrar's mediation. It's like a mediated relationship of helping people get to the event. Seeking financial aid, seeking transportation assistance, all these things are part of the registration process. And this software is just like a glimpse of that from my basic understanding. So the next cool thing we're going to do, does that make sense, or does that kind of
Sure.
correspond with what you're saying also? Next thing.
Yeah, I was also thinking that, registration, the registrar is also very involved with registration.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to put the code in. Yes, that's right. From a back-end purpose, the registrar has to, for example, manage payments, make sure that the registration is paid for all the way. Hey, what's up, Level 2? Welcome back. Hayes Anderson, thanks for the reminder. I'm still on screensaver. All right. I'll have to get better at that. All right, so John, in just a moment, you'll be, I know you've got to run here in what, 15 minutes or 30 minutes?
9 minutes.
Darn, yeah.
Right.
All right, let me get.
I don't know if you can hear my daughter in the background, but I no longer have an exclusive workspace.
Yeah, that's cool. I hear.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. Adds a little bit of niceness to the stream, additional, I don't know, ambiance. All right, Let me just check over here at the Western friend. I'm going to copy paste some code from Western friend. Except when she shrieks, then it's like, ah.
Yeah, it can be attention grabbing for sure.
Yeah. I just need to get one thing. Let's see. Orders. I'm going to copy and paste some code from the Western friend website that I've been also working on. Here's one. From the memorials, I just did this. So I can save a little bit of time on stream and not have to just solve things I've already solved. Port magic didn't work. Darn it. And I'll call this admin py import from DOM models. So from our registration model, we're going to import the registration. And what we're going to do is register this with the Wagtail admin, and if just to make it clear, this page here with the blue and the Wagtail and everything, this is the Wagtail admin right here. Now, if I want to add a registrant to the system, there's not really a way to do that right now, unless yeah, there's just not a way to do it right now. So I have to actually, I'm defining that over here in the code. So we'll add registration model admin. Did I say registrant? And the model is called registrant. And the label for the menu is registrants. And then this will be person, FA user, I think is the thing. Menu order should be 100. It's not going to be in the settings menu. I don't know. We'll exclude those from the file browser. I need to make a full name method. Now this is cool. Once I've defined a couple fields in here, we can also define methods on those fields. So this will probably be familiar to people who've done web development already. Let me make sure this, I'm keeping an eye on the stream chat. Oh, John Hayes says that she's turning the workspace into her space. Full name.
Got it.
Nice. Makes sense. That sounds like she's meandered on doing something else. Use F string here. I'll return. How do you do F strings? First name plus space plus self last name. All right, there we go. Just put spaces for a nice touch. So now we've got these fields are actually stored in the database, first name and last name, and we've got a method that's not stored in the database, but can be invoked when you have a particular instance. When you get a record out of the database, you can do things with it, including rendering it in admin UI. And we'll just say, what was the other field? Registration cost. Now, since it's not really a field, in the sense of being stored in the database, you can't really search it, but you can search across the subcomponents and still locate the same record you're looking for. I believe this will work. I don't know. There's some caveats. If I'm entering a first name and last name, I don't know if it'll resolve the person's name. The person's record, it should get us in the ballpark of finding it. All right, so now I've registered this registrant model with the Wagtail admin. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the Wagtail page. And John, on your end, if you go ahead and go to the Wagtail admin section, if you're still loaded in there.
Yep.
And what do you see on the left-hand menu? And this comment's actually redundant, but I think it somehow generates documents from these doc strings.
Registrants.
Yes, on the left-hand side menu. It didn't get an icon, so let me. That was FA user, but yeah, FA user. Maybe I just need this whole FA user to get that.
Do you have a user icon?
Oh, you know what? I don't have Wagtail Font Awesome installed. You're right in a way that I don't have a user icon, but if I install Font Awesome, we will. So Poetry, install, Wagtail, font awesome. Too many arguments. Poetry add, Wagtail font awesome. In the meantime, could you add a couple of registrants, John?
Sure. On the website itself? No, it takes me to a template does not exist error.
When you try to add one, I had this problem before. Let me double check. What did I do? I had this problem with I think I've added Wagtail model admin to the site configuration. This is not really clearly documented, but let me just double check it. So site settings, base.py, Wagtail model admin, HIJKL.
It says the registrant index does not exist.
Yeah. Let me just think this through briefly. I think it's contrib. It's a known bug. It's just a simple thing. Wagtail yes. So now try it. Wagtail contrib model admin. I just had to add that in Streamforms. I might need there. Did it work this time?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me see. What'd you add? Contrib model admin. Okay.
Yep, so now you should have the form. What this model admin does is auto-generates forms based on your model definitions. And it might not actually have any fields. I didn't really...
Does that contrib imply that it's one of those third-party?
Yeah, it's third-party that lives close to the core. It was like third-party that was incorporated into the fold. It comes by default with Wagtail, but it's not enabled by default maybe, as opposed to a third-party module like Wagtail Font Awesome that I have to pip install manually.
Gotcha. So yeah, no registrants have been created. Why not add one? It's a link. I'm adding one. Okay, first name. Reggie. Trant. I'm gonna say I cost $500. Save. Looks like I got a registrant on there.
Nice. Brilliant. Let me just double check, make sure this Wagtail Font Awesome it's going to work. So I just need the FA user and then add it to my installed apps and we should be good to go. To third-party apps, I'll just go down here, Wagtail Font Awesome. All right, then now if you refresh the sidebar menu, should have a nice little icon there if everything is going all okay, but no, it's not. Let me just kill the server and restart it. I installed a, nope. Oh, blast. Well, the Font Awesome's not so important right now. It's a nice touch. Yeah, Wagtail Font Awesome is installed. It says no module named Wagtail Font Awesome. Bummer, dude. Weirdness. Weird stuff like that just bothers me. Well, maybe there's a different font package. I'm not gonna spend too much time fiddling with an icon thing. I was hoping to have a payment component installed, so let's go ahead and add a payment model. Now, do you think the payment model should live in the registration app, or should we create a new app for payments, John?
Now, when you say registration, did you mean registrant or?
Well, the registration now is a top-level app in our,
I got you.
and it can consist of multiple ingredients, just like a kitchen can have multiple appliances.
Gotcha.
But you have to,
Yeah.
you don't want your dishwasher in the living room. You have to kind of think of natural groupings of things. And a payment could be its own app.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be paying for things other than registrants.
Right. So should we just go ahead and make it its own app, or should we incorporate
Sure.
payment into that? Okay, cool. Just gonna commit a few things. All right, so then we'll pip, so I'll kill the server, Python, manage, start app, payments. Payments, plural, because an app name is plural, the table name is singular by convention. If your app is encompassing like one sort of logical entity, like a kitchen has multiple appliances, but a kitchen is singular because you have one kitchen, so yeah, it's just not always obvious how to name things.
Okay. But are we saying that the app is synonymous with the room?
More or less, yeah. And the room can have multiple things, or the room can be just one primary appliance in there.
Okay.
Now, what should our payment model have? We haven't really discussed this, but here it is. We have now a payments app and a registration app. Our model file, I think it'll just have essentially so class payment imports from models model. What, it should just have an amount and a currency, or just an amount?
Oh, I see.
Grab some tea before it gets too strong. I got my tea leaves still in there, and it's going to get really strong really quick. But I don't want to take another break from the live coding because we're already cutting it so close. Should we just start with the payment amount right now, and then we'll add fields? Because migrations let you do things incrementally, change the data model, and evolve it over time. It's the brilliant part about having
Sure.
migrations
Does it
built
need
in.
a target? Like, what is it being applied to?
That's what we have to think about, and that's where the many-to-many type thinking comes in to play.
Okay.
And can a payment, and in fact, I have to think of the base model here. If a model, Django model is correct, or if we're going to want to be able to apply multiple payments against, directly against a registration. So what is this? What was our, let's go back to our little whiteboard. So in this case of registration and payments, what's the relationship between payments and registration? That's what we're asking, yeah. Is it that, which of these three, one-to-one, many-to-one, or many-to-many?
Wow, geez, I guess it could be many to many.
You can make multiple payments towards multiple registrants. Oh, dude, this is that's gonna be a pain in the tushy, but it's probably the reality of things, isn't it?
Yeah, the most flexible.
It's the most flexible. All right, just trying to think how to, okay, so we'll model it as a many-to-many. We'll need an intermediary table called a registration payment or something that along those lines that has foreign keys to both, and I'm not sure how to get that into Wagtail UI. And how to validate it. So when I add a registration payment, so it looks like this. It's our many-to-many. Are you looking at the whiteboard?
I was looking at the model class, but I am looking at the whiteboard now.
All right, so based on what you said, that we have a many-to-many relationship, and that each of these has a foreign key. Pointing out to the corresponding entity. So there's only, so this basically has a one-to-one for each of these related entities. So we'll have to define that. So let's get our model, our payment model defined here. I'll add our payments app to our settings. So a payment has an amount, and then should we call it registration payment or payment registration or payment disbursement?
Is that referring to the registrant that it applies to?
It's both. If you review our data model here, the registration payment is referring to the registration and the payment. It's a foreign key, a one-to-one in both directions. In order to have a many-to-many relationship, like we kind of discussed, that you could apply a payment to multiple registrations or multiple payments to a single registration. That's a many-to-many because there's one registration, many payments, one payment, many registrations. So on both of that cardinality, you have multiple relationships. So we have to have this intermediary table where each row in the table unites one. What the table should be called and what the entity should be called is basically the question, and we can rename things later. It's not permanent, but
it seems like, yeah, it seems like registration payment, just all smushed together.
Yeah, that's right, and that way it keeps things consistent, which is I think pretty Pythonic not to use, or at least clean code guidelines say to use the same name for things. Let me just run this migration to get the payment model in, and payment has an amount for now, but we'll migrate that later, improving the data model.
You just mentioned clean code. Have you read Pragmatic Programmer?
No, but I've read several of the books from the publisher that does pragmatic coding. And in fact, they kind of, honestly, that publisher a little bit was responsible for derailing me for about 10 years from learning Django and Python because they had a heavy emphasis on Ruby on Rails. But in any case, what do you think about the pragmatic programmer? Have you read that?
I've heard basically a lot of good things, and I've heard that well, not in contrast, but in any case, that clean code is pretty specific to Java.
Oh yeah, well there are some, yeah, that makes sense, or object-oriented programmings, but yeah, a lot of it, the patterns are kind of to essentially, and a lot of the design patterns that Gang of Four proposed perhaps are to smooth over some of the nuances and warts of Java or patterns that you encounter when doing Java development. That makes sense. Everything is context-based, everything is situated, so yeah, you can't really have patterns to follow without an environment in which to follow them. But the clean code has been adapted to other languages at least, and some of the ideas are applicable outside of those. So Clean Code Python is a Git repository. I'll send it, it's an adaptation of that book with code examples in Python. I'll send that both in the level 2, it's not level 2, but the Twitch chat and in our little hangout here. Where's our chat? How do we get to the dang John and Min chat? Perfect. And then they've adapted it. It's been adapted also to JavaScript, but that's not really our cup of tea right now, or a cup of Java script. Nice. All right. So I've migrated in the payment model, and now just let me commit this. We're going to add in the model for payment. What's it called? Payment registrant payment. I forget. Dang it. Registration payment. Actually, it's registrant is the name of the other model. So we're getting a little bit inconsistent with our terminology here.
Well, we don't have to.
That's true, because it's not
You can
set in
just call
code.
Oh, registration registrant. I think that the whiteboard is an error, and
Yeah.
that registrant is the right word.
So it should be registrant payment.
Yeah.
Somehow that doesn't seem, it just seems like awkward English to me. But okay, but it's
Well, it's not supposed to be a grammatical phrase. It's actually a joining together. It's sort of a,
yeah, that makes sense.
what do you call that table in the middle of a many-to-many
It's a
relationship?
join table.
Yeah, it seems appropriate for a join table.
All right, so we have a registrant equals models foreign key, and the 2 equals, so now we need to import our models. So from registrant models import from registry models import registrant, and then we already have the payment in here, so we just say registrant. And then the reverse name will be, in other words, when I have a registration, when I'm looking at a registrant in the code view, I'll say, get me the payments, I think, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's registrant payments, give me the registrant payments, or I think it's more or less the payments, which will return these documents, the registrant payments document, which is the intermediary table. You'll see how this works in a little bit when we start writing code in a future session. Which, are you available next weekend, do you think?
Oh yeah. Which might be a good point for me to say that I actually do have to check out soon.
Yep. Foreign key 2 equals payment.
Now, your style here with the space around the equal signs at the top, not around the equal signs, within the parentheses. Is that sort of a deliberate choice?
Yeah, it's
Cool.
I think it's
Cool.
PEP 8 or PEP something.
Okay.
It's one of the PEPs.
Yeah. Gotcha. So function arguments, no spaces.
Right.
Gotcha. But naming variables, spaces.
Yep. And sometimes the linter will catch you and correct it for you, and then I just end up
Wow. Cool.
function method arguments. Always use self. Always use class. And function arguments name classes with a reserved keyword. Well, I don't know where I actually picked it up. I think it's in one of these.
That's cool.
Well, actually, they're using spaces. When combining an argument annotation with a default value, however, do use spaces around the equals sign. If it has if it has a default value, but when you're using it, you don't. See, when you're defining it, I don't know. Well, I'm sure we could find that snippet of how I picked up that habit. It's cool. Yeah, it is good. Yeah. Good eye though. It's like a lint. You have a linter's eye, which is important when you're peer reviewing code to actually not get too kind of stuck on that level of detail, but. Right. Actually, you're supposed to help the elevate above the level of detail in general, but it's good to also be able to be pedantic about things. All right, so we got a new model just migrated in, and then I think we can kind of wrap up this session.
I hope Reggie has a good time at the meeting. Reggie Strand.
Oh gosh, I was like, wait a minute, what? Let me see what this error is. Missing one required position or on delete. Okay, so yeah, we need to do on delete equals. And you can also see in the documentation for, can you see this documentation pop over? They're using no spaces around that. Oh no, you're not watching the live stream.
It's okay. I think, yeah, style guides are pretty, conventional, arbitrary.
Yep.
I was just curious. So you said it was Pi 8, or what did you call it?
PEP 8.
PEP 8, okay.
Which is Python enhancement proposal number 8. It's one of the ones that was created a long time ago.
Cool.
All right, so now we should be able to migrate these in and call it a day. Foreign key, I guess, doesn't have a reverse name. Related name, not reverse name. Come on. Yeah, so we won't be able to get this into the user interface yet, but we'll test it out. And Hayes Anderson says, I only want one thing in terms of style guide, is consistency. That's true. It would just be consistent with whatever style. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this session. I'll do a little bit off stream to get us in a little better shape, maybe registering this with the Wagtail Admin UI. John, it's been really cool hanging out with you. And we'll hope to continue this.
For me and Riley.
Yep, next weekend. Have a good week. And say hi to the family for me, please.
I'll do it. You do the same.
All right, thanks. And thanks, Hayes, for participating in the chat. Again, this has been a CodeBuddies.org live coding session. We're not working on the CodeBuddies platform itself, but there's a lot of great activities going on CodeBuddies.org. If you want to learn or help other people along their way, their learning journey, do stop by CodeBuddies.org. And we could also use some help right now with developers who are interested in contributing to the open source development of the CodeBuddies website. If you're familiar with Django or JavaScript, we particularly need help from front-end and back-end coders. All right, well, thanks again for watching and have a great day.